Welcome back to the LeverUp AMA series. I'm Marcus. We've talked before about the two main ways Perp dexes source liquidity, LP pools and protocol-managed systems like LeverUp's own VMMV. Today, James is here to tell me there's a third one showing up on Solana. James, welcome back.
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, it's called PropAMM, short for proprietary AMM. Worth saying up front, it's not a product name, it's a market structure category formalized in Jump crypto research. It swaps passive, crowdsourced LP capital for a single professional market maker running its own privately operated pricing engine.
Okay, break that down for me. What's actually different mechanically?
In a passive AMM, Uniswap style, price comes from a public formula, X times Y equals K, and anyone can deposit capital to be an LP. In a PropAMM, the liquidity comes from one professional market maker's own inventory, and the pricing logic runs off-chain, privately. Their system watches centralized exchange order books in real time and computes a price, then pushes signed updates on-chain at a high frequency. Ellipsis Labs published architecture targets something like every 100 milliseconds. The chain's job is narrow: verify that signed update and settle the trade against it. The pricing model that produced the number isn't visible on-chain.
So no external LP pool at all.
Right, there's no crowdsourced pool of traders transacting against. It's one market maker's own capital, managed as proprietary inventory.
Now, before we put this side by side with LP pools and protocol-managed liquidity, you told me before we started recording that this isn't really one ladder. What did you mean?
I think that's the most important framing, actually. A perp DEX has to answer two separate questions: who quotes the price and updates it, and how execution, settlement, and risk get handled once a position's open. In a passive LP pool, one thing answers both: the pool's ratio sets the price, and the pool's capital is the counterparty. PropAMM is really an upgrade to the first question, who quotes and how, and the market maker's inventory happens to also be the counterparty, mostly because today's Solana PropAMM implementations concentrate liquidity in one professional operator instead of a crowd. Protocol-managed liquidity is defined by the second question first. Execution and settlement live at the protocol layer, and pricing is handled separately through a public Oracle feed.
So PropAMM is a quoting architecture, and protocol-managed liquidity is an execution architecture. Two different axes.
Exactly, useful to compare side by side, but not strictly the same kind of thing. And even the three-way split isn't perfectly clean. Something like GMX already blends LP capital with Oracle-referenced pricing, so it could reasonably sit under more than one label. Treat the comparison as useful shorthand, not a rigid taxonomy.
Let's talk about who's actually doing this. You mentioned Phoenix Perpetuals.
Ellipsis Labs, the team behind Phoenix, an earlier on-chain order book on Solana, built out the PropAMM model for spot trading first, through a product called SolFi, and they're now extending it to Perpetuals with Phoenix Perpetuals. The spot track record is what they point to. March 2026 execution analysis, looking at roughly 20 million Sol trades, found a median execution price within 0.72 basis points of the study's benchmark CEX midpoint, with about 92% of trades clearing inside the comparison threshold against a CEX institutional tier quote. Their stated goal for perps is bringing total costs toward 3 to 5 basis points, closer to what a centralized venue like Binance charges.
That sounds like a big claim. What's the honest caveat?
Few, that analysis shows this implementation narrowed the spread gap for the specific markets and periods studied. It doesn't prove the same result for every PropAMM implementation, and it's not the same as recreating CEX market structure generally. Large centralized exchanges aggregate quotes from many competing participants, usually at lower latency than a blockchain slot allows. A PropAMM's price today comes from one operator without that same breadth of competing quotes. It can narrow the execution quality gap in the cases it's been measured. It doesn't reproduce the actual market structure that produces CEX pricing in the first place.
And there was a Solana-specific technical problem they had to solve to make this work for perps at all, right?
Right, without guaranteed transaction ordering, a market maker updating a quote has no guarantee that update lands before someone trades against the stale price. Phoenix Perpetuals' transaction-level design is built to prioritize quote updates ahead of incoming trades, solving that at the protocol layer.
Okay, here's the question I think people actually want answered. What's the catch with PropAMM?
Any system where the pricing logic is privately operated raises the same structural question, no matter who's running it. You can verify the execution result on-chain, but you can't independently verify that the pricing model that produced it was fair in that specific moment. That's a different trust assumption than a public formula or a public Oracle feed. It's not a flaw unique to one implementation. It's the trade-off that comes with moving pricing off-chain in pursuit of tighter spreads and lower update costs. The market's still working that out through track record and third-party analysis.
So where does LeverUp sit in all this? I want to be direct. Is LeverUp a PropAMM?
No, and I want to be precise about why, since it's easy to blur these. LeverUp uses a protocol-managed virtual liquidity system, the VMMV, where trades reference Pro's public Oracle feed, and execution, settlement, and risk management happens separately at the protocol layer. The pricing question and the execution question are answered by two different parts of the architecture. A PropAMM collapses both of those into one operator's private engine. LeverUp deliberately keeps them apart.
Does that mean LeverUp's model has no equivalent trade-off?
No, it has its own version. A protocol-managed system depends on Oracle quality and on the protocol's own execution, settlement, and risk controls holding up, the same way a PropAMM depends on its operator's pricing model holding up, and an LP pool depends on LP capital staying put. Different failure surface, but everyone's got one.
Last thing, you hinted at something interesting, that the next step might not be a fourth standalone model.
Right, and I think this is the more interesting part, honestly. Since PropAMM and protocol-managed liquidity are already answering different questions, there's nothing stopping someone from combining them, a protocol-layer risk engine handling margin, liquidation, and settlement, paired with a PropAMM-style engine handling quoting and pricing. Split the two questions across two specialized layers instead of asking one architecture to do both. Whether that shows up in practice and who builds it is genuinely open. But it's a coherent question to ask precisely because the two questions were never the same thing to begin with.
James, this was a good one. Appreciate the precision.
Anytime.